Less than 3 weeks until the Albanese government's first budget, and the focus very much today on those stage 3 tax cuts. Labor had a debate before the election. They had a settled position. Is that going to change? Let's bring in our political editor, Andrew Clennell, on that, Andrew. And it's the big if right now, isn't it?
It is, Kieran, and as I reported yesterday, if there was one person in opposition who wanted to go to the election amending the Morrison government's stage 3 tax cuts, it was then Shadow Treasurer and now Treasurer Jim Chalmers. But that internal argument was won by Anthony Albanese and his Deputy Richard Marles. And this is where now Deputy Prime Minister Richard Marles put himself at odds with the Shadow Treasurer on Sunday Agenda in an interview with me last May, shortly before Shadow Cabinet adopted the position accepting the cuts.
You know, our instinct is we don't want to stand between anyone and a tax cut.
For obvious reasons, there was always scepticism that Labor would follow through on this. Labor had opposed the tax cuts in the Parliament, after all, so there was suspicion that they were just saying they were going to carry the tax cuts through at the election in order to win the election. The PM was quizzed about this several times in the election campaign, including notably 2 days before the election by Kieran.
You've told voters throughout the campaign that you are a man of your word. You've made a public commitment that you're going to deliver those stage 3 tax cuts. I asked you this afternoon then, alongside those tax cuts, can you give an assurance to recipients of those that you won't increase the Medicare levy or an NDIS levy increase where you would be giving with one hand and taking with the other?
Yes, I can, Kieran. We're committed to delivering what we said we would. And I've said on the stage 3 tax cuts that they've been legislated. People are entitled to operate on the basis of that certainty.
It's a pretty big call to walk away from those answers. But we have seen 2 Prime Ministers do similar before, and it cost them.
There will be no carbon tax under the government I lead.
No cuts to health, no change to pensions, no change to the GST, and no cuts to the ABC.
So Jim Chalmers indicates the situation has changed since May, but we knew there was high inflation then. We knew we were on track for $1 trillion gross debt then. The tax cuts benefit everyone on $45,000 plus, but they do seem more given to the highly taxed people on bigger incomes. And they cost the budget $17 billion in year one, 2024-25, which is some way off. We might not even have high inflation then. So we saw Jim Chalmers appearing to set the scene to crab walk away from the promise yesterday, putting the blame at the feet of the global and UK situation.
Are you considering amending stage 3?
We haven't changed our position on stage 3. What I've said...
Discussions about changing policy internally?
We haven't changed our policy, and I'm obviously not going to get into conversations that people have from time to time. We are obviously factoring in the context of that budget, including deteriorating global conditions.
Katie Gallagher, the Finance Minister, had similar language on Radio National this morning. There was no denial that amending stage 3 is in the mix in those current Expenditure Review Committee discussions, in long, almost torturous exchanges here.
The Treasurer, Jim Chalmers, said the task is to make the budget more responsible, more affordable and more sustainable. Do the stage 3 tax cuts meet that test?
Well, the Treasurer's comments were looking across the budget as a whole. We haven't changed our position on stage 3. You know, let's not pretend that the economic circumstances aren't changing and haven't changed since May. You know, we are in this high and rising inflation environment. We've got rising interest rates, we've got falling real wages.
But can you confirm that you're in active conversations about making adjustments to those stage 3 tax cuts?
I'm telling you, and as you say, it is factually correct. We haven't changed our position.
Yet.
We are finalising a budget where we are looking across the board at a whole range of decisions, and we are being upfront with the Australian community.
Are you prepared to make that change?
Well, that's a hypothetical question.
Well, the Finance Minister and Treasurer keep saying they are being upfront, but they're not really. They're not telling us what they're going to do. Perhaps that is because people in government suggest to me there is no decision yet on this. I think if you look at Jim Chalmers' comments this week, he wants to amend the Stage 3 tax cuts. The key question here then is the PM on the same page as the Treasurer? And that will no doubt be a prominent subject at Anthony Albanese's next press conference. Opposition leader Peter Dutton says the Chalmers comparison to the UK situation is misleading in the extreme.
They are obviously walking away from the Stage 3 tax cuts. Now, that would be a significant break of faith with the Australian public, Chris, because there are many people who voted for them on the basis that they weren't going to increase taxes. Stage 3 tax cuts here in Australia are very different to what Liz Truss has proposed and now walked away from in the UK. We do not abolish the top marginal tax rate under the Stage 3 tax cuts here.
Well, the Labor member for Macarthur in New South Wales is very insistent when he spoke to Ashley Gillen earlier that they should be keeping to their commitment, the Stage 3 tax cuts, saying people are really struggling and they need this money.
The Labor caucus and the Labor Party will come to the appropriate decision, I'm sure, and he's giving everyone the opportunity to express their views. And, I'm confident we will come up with the right decision. What I would say is that we've made promises, and I think that we need to stick to them. People earning over $120,000, it does sound like a lot, but I know with the pressures on mortgages and the large mortgages that people have in the Macarthur community around the country, $120,000 or even a bit more than that, these are not rich people. These are people that are working hard to try and put a roof over their heads, put food on the table, educate their kids.
They have Mike Freelander